The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Welcome to Success Secrets Exposed with Sally A. Curtis, where we share stories of challenge, success, and inspiration, along with practical tips and strategies to move you forward to your success. And now, here is your host, Sally A. Curtis.
Good evening, good morning, and good day to you all. Welcome to another episode of Success Secrets Exposed, where we have conversations with today's thought leaders, change makers, and kindred spirits to bring you tools and strategies to help you have forward movement. For those that are new to the show, I'm a content repurposing whiz for speakers, authors, and coaches, helping them turn their books, for example, into 2 years' worth of social media posts. My role is to help them turn their existing content into new profits. But today we're going to be talking with Anne McDowell on being a problem solver, not a problem dweller and reteller. So let me give you a little bit of background on Anne. She is the positivity and transformation specialist who facilitates, tricky one to trip over, transformational change through positive and emotionally intelligent decision making. So that's what I'm really going to be loving about our conversation today, is that an intelligent decision making conversation we're going to be having. She's also a 2 times international award-winning author of the book Creating Eternal Optimism: Redesigning Your Thinking and Transforming Your Life in 30 Days. And it's filled with 101 strategies to help you redesign, rethink, and overcome adversity. So please, without any further ado, help me welcome Anne McDowell to the show.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Sally. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
You're very, very welcome. I feel thrilled to be sharing with you today. I know we've had some fabulous conversations and we're very much kindred spirits with similar stories. So welcome and thank you for joining me.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'd love to kick it off with asking you if you could share a little bit of your backstory. You and I are both problem solvers in the essence of what it is that we do, but there's always interesting when that problem solving ability eludes us for a little while, and you've got a very interesting backstory. It's very similar to mine. So can you share a little bit about how you've sort of got to being this transformational specialist now?
Sure. I've been happy to. So I guess, like everybody else, we go through our lives thinking that, we can do lots of different things in our life, and we've experienced lots of things such as relationships and relationship breakups and as we learn and grow throughout our life. And sometimes we feel that we can overcome any challenges that come our way, and sometimes we can't. So I guess my little bit of my backstory is that I seem to have been sort of like an agony aunt for people throughout my entire life and helping them overcome their particular issues without really knowing it. I was just that friend that, I could be relied on to support people through their trauma or their upset or their challenge, and often provide a little bit of what I thought was just normal advice. But people seem to keep saying to me, oh, wow, you really have a way of solving problems. And gee, that's really great advice. Thanks. And I thought, oh, well, great, I've helped somebody, and then I've moved them, they've moved on and they've done their thing and they've bounced back. It wasn't really until people kept saying it to me that I was called like a Pollyanna, or a somebody who looks at things with a eternally optimistic attitude, that I realized that people really valued this and they didn't necessarily have those skills for themselves. And I guess I've been a person throughout my own work life and social life where I've, been faced with lots of different adversities, but overcome them because I thought about just picking myself up, dusting myself off and moving on. I didn't realize that that wasn't a very natural thing for everybody. And equally, it wasn't until that I'd had lots of challenges throughout my life with some illness and some challenges where I had a metabolic syndrome, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I put on a lot of weight and I couldn't shift it. And it really wasn't until I was in my 30s where I discovered that I had been told lots of different things. And it wasn't until I made up my mind to do something about it myself and created my own thing that things started to really change. Then I managed to lose 50 kilos, which in the pounds scenario is around 120 pounds by myself in around the 12-month thing. I kind of did my own Biggest Loser sort of thing, but created it for me. And then after I had reached a pinnacle of success, I'd been in business for myself, I'd done all of this thing, that I got myself embroiled in a situation that led me to doubt my own abilities to bounce back. I seem to be doing a vast amount of just speaking right now, but it's kind of leading me to where you're asking me about how this all transpired. I was unfortunately hooked up into an emotionally draining and emotionally abusive relationship with someone about 15, 16 years ago. And as a seemingly intelligent person, I got hooked up and had hit rock bottom, I guess is the only way to describe it. I hit rock bottom throughout this scenario. And it wasn't until a girlfriend said to me, "You were at such the top of your game before you met him," that I realized how far I'd fallen and how much I got stuck. I got stuck in dwelling in the drama, dwelling and retelling my drama story, and I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she said that I realized how far I'd fallen, because I was fighting with my intellectual self and my emotionally intelligent self, and it wasn't working, and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I need to do something. And as a consequence of that drama, I realized how easy it is for us to fall into a trap and fall into the mud of what life can throw at you.
Yeah.
So that's why I developed these strategies for myself, and it was post then as to why I decided to make it really, I'd always done change work and helping people cope through change. That was part of what I did. But when the boot's on the other foot, when you have to pull yourself out of it yourself, that I realized there are so many people on this planet that have things like this happen to them, that I really need to be there for people.
Yeah.
That's why I've identified it as dwelling and retelling your story.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you took the time, and thank you for doing that and sharing that, because there was a couple of gold nuggets that was going to come out of that. Firstly, that I'm just going to pick into a little bit. Firstly, I think, there's that moment where you've, for those people that are listening, when you're on and trying to find your purpose in life, and sometimes it takes us, we might be 30 or 40 or 50 before we really find that real, that real calling of what we're coming into. were that person that everybody went to, that you became the problem solver. So that you had the hints all the way through your life that, you know, that was what you were great at. You didn't realize necessarily the ultimate value of it, like most of us don't, because it's so instinctive and so easy and natural for us, whereas for others it's not. So it becomes highly valuable for them because it's not at ease. So for me, it's an acknowledgement of, hey, that's an inner genius element. So I want the audience to sort of recognize that, in you, but also potentially in themselves as well. If you're continually getting asked for something, there might be a little bit of inner genius in there. The other thing that I really loved is that when you also spoke about when you finally made your decision, when it was around losing the weight, you created your own solutions. You worked out what the problem was and created your own solutions. I also want to acknowledge that, because I think a lot of us think that the solutions always need to be external. So we go looking for them elsewhere and in other people, which was my experience around relationship. And we'll get onto that one in a minute. But I also think, you know, it's really great for the audience to recognize that, you know, we actually already do, in most cases, have the answers, but we may be looking at them with the wrong glasses on, where in your case, we're going to be talking about the, you know, problem-solving glasses, whereas you might have dwelling and retelling glasses on. And I know I had that for myself for years. So, you know, having the ability to take those off, or having that one or two amazing girlfriends that just say something to you that cuts like a knife, but enables you to go, oh my God, that is so true. I wasn't seeing it like that. Just shifting your perspective.
Yes.
For us all to then be able to go, oh my God, that isn't right. How do I need to change that? What do I need to do? You know, just having that opportunity to see it in the reality for the very first time. So I love that also you talked about being stuck in that, and we are until somebody tips us out of that apple cart and sort of gives us that shake. But the other thing you talked about, which I loved, because I giggled when you were talking about it, because I remember experiencing this for myself, the self-fighting. You know, laying in bed, retelling the story to yourself and saying, I should have said that, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that, or if he hadn't done that, I would have done this, blah, 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 blah. Please continue.
The mental anguish is something to behold. And, you know, in my fitness campaign and me going out and doing my 3 kilometers walking every day, the endorphins would then kick in my brain, and my intellectual self was then fighting, saying, you know what's right, you know this is wrong, this is not acceptable, why are you accepting? And then my emotional brain is saying, oh, but you know, it's complicated, it's this, it's that, you know. And we had gone through a major natural disaster during this period, and it's sort of like, oh well, he didn't have anywhere to live, he didn't, because of we had massive floods in our area, and his apartment had been flooded, and so he moved in with me. And then, you know, it was a whole range of what do they call it, unusual incidents that kind of clashed. And then it was me in my intellectual brain talking about, saying, you know that this is not acceptable behavior from someone, you know that this is, you know, nothing to do with you. But then my emotional brain is saying, oh, but you know, he's a victim in this circumstance, he's had all this, and you know, I'm a problem solver, I'm this, I'm that. So it was stealth manipulation, which I didn't realize at the time was happening, and this continual fight between my two opposing selves was quite interesting, and on reflection, very interesting on reflection. But it was sort of, you know, trying to, there were excuses being made from my emotional self to my rational self about why I was in this particular situation and how I could then get to the other side. The upshot of all that is that the universe works in strange ways.
Yeah,
And
humour, yes.
And I think the universe had been telling me things all along the way that my emotional self was refusing to listen to.
Yeah.
I'd been shown signs, I had been shown hints, I had been given, little bits of kicks and, all this sort of stuff. And my emotional intelligence, I ignored, and that it was to my peril.
Yeah.
And that was something that I had to, and my instincts, I ignored to my peril. So it was then about when the when it came really crashing down, apart from it all the stuff that had happened before.
Yeah.
I was then left emotionally spent.
Yeah.
It was an emotional vampire, took everything that I had, and it was the Titanic.
Yeah.
And basically I was floating on that surface only just.
Yeah.
And then I had to realize that what my responsibility was in all of that. And that was a hard thing to swallow at the time, because, again, I had allowed the situation to occur because I didn't listen to my instincts and listen to the messages that were in abundance around me.
Yeah.
So it was then, what I did, and I share with your audience, that I cried for 3 months together every day. I had the biggest victim pity party I think I could have had. And then at the end of it, my girlfriend then said, she gave that pearl of wisdom, and which made me stop and think, oh my goodness, you really need to lift your game. Yeah. And I did. And you said before when you were talking about, the power within yourself. That's the key. Yeah. You do have the power within yourself, but what happens in a trauma situation, we surrender our power in the situation and we give it to a taxi driver to take us wherever we need to go in our life.
Yeah.
We forget we relinquish control, and in the pity party victim thing, which is totally fine, by the way. There's nothing wrong. You've got to have the emotional outpouring in order to recover. Yeah. There's no denying the emotional intensity of the situation. You must feel. You must. But it's about how long you feel. It's how long you give your control to that taxi driver to take you places. Yeah. It's when you decide to get back in the driver's seat and how long that is. Yeah. Now, grief and, trauma and the emotional turmoil from those events is not dictated to by you must do it at a certain time. Everybody is different. Yeah. But it's about when you make the decision to say, I'm not just grieving at this point, I'm wallowing in my grief at this point. And that's when the realization is there. And it's not about not being able to grieve for an inordinate amount of time if you've lost a loved one. That's a completely different scenario. And that's not what we're talking about. It's about when you've been knocked down with challenges in your life and you choose to stay stuck in that drama. Just as an example, and I know I did it, and this is why my girlfriend had to tell me, I allowed myself to stay stuck in that trauma for too long when that person wasn't worth the angst. Yeah. And I let it affect me. So in my coaching, I've talked to lots of different people. And one person was actually a friend rather than a client. And she said she had a story. Everybody does have a story. But then she decided, she was still telling the same story 3 years on. Still stuck in that problem 3 years on. And I said to her, and incidentally, that actually transpired to 8-9 years on. And I said to her, why would you stay stuck in this drama for that length of time.
Mm.
And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about being stuck for lengthy periods of time where I've got something else to tell you about that, but it's very much about choices. And the choices about whether you continue to stay stuck or whether you choose to move forward.
Yeah. And I think it's as easy as that sounds when you're in it, it's actually very hard, which is why I wanted to dig into this conversation. Because I remember, we do, if I look at my own experience, you do have, hey, I'm in marketing. I can make marketing, as Rory puts it, my son. Is that marketing spin, Mum? I can spin you the best version of that story, and I can spin it in all different directions, because as humans, we are evidence stackers based on what our perspective is. So if we're stuck in, and from my experience, when we're stuck in that circling loop, by bringing in all of the other evidence and all of the marketing spin, as Rory puts it, it goes from being sort of like that little, like a 10-cent piece, to it becomes this really bigger story, and the story gets bigger and it gets more life, and it takes longer to go round and round in that circle, so you're actually in it longer, and it's you start tumbling all in these different directions. And in my own experience, you talked about how it became emotionally tiring. I remember being absolutely exhausted and sort of going through almost a burnout, but it wasn't a work-related burnout that I'd experienced previously because I was overworking. It was an emotional, because of all of the stuff that I kept playing, or I kept trying to keep down, because I had my story and I wanted all the other stuff to stay down there, because if that came up, it changed my story, and I'd got my story perfect. So it's almost, it's exhausting trying to keep all of the balls under the water when all they want to do is pop up for you to deal with them. And it takes that special girlfriend, or that, that somebody that says something to you on top of the and I've got this talk where I talk about the feather, the brick, and the Mack truck. We've all got all of those universal signs, and we've got all those intuitions coming in saying something's not right. But if we sort of flick them away and don't list them, eventually the Mack truck comes along. Whether that is a health illness, or it's your girlfriend slapping around you, driving the Mack truck over the top of you to make you suddenly realise. But it's that point where we acknowledge the potential change of a story, and we acknowledge that we can actually now choose. And
it's such a powerful thing. And what we forget when we're faced with adversity or challenges, we forget that we're in control of things. And this is one of the things that I learned while I was doing my master's degree, was about the locus of control. And it was a concept theory that was developed by a gentleman named Rotter, W-O-T-T-E-R. And he did it in 1954. And it was about the power of choice and the power of how you perceive yourself as being the decision maker, where the power lies in a particular situation. The best way to illustrate it is by the characters, and I think this is probably more of a universal thing that people can latch onto, is the characters in A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
And it's also about the Disney characterization of Winnie the Pooh. And I think that it's gold. It's absolute gold. So with that, there are two pivotal figures within Winnie the Pooh, apart from Winnie, but they are Eeyore, the donkey, and Tigger, the tiger. So in terms of the locus of control, I'm going to talk about those two characters in particular because they're so easily accessible online that people can find it out, and they probably already imagine the Tigger and Eeyore figure.
Yeah.
Now, Tigger is is illustrative of the internal locus of control, meaning that he feels he has control over his life, over his destiny. He's upbeat. He talks in an upbeat tone. He always sees things as an adventure.
Yeah.
Even when the Jaguar comes to town, he looks at going out and meeting the Jaguar, and everybody else is instilled with fear about the Jaguar, but he sees it as an adventure. But he also bounces everywhere.
Mm.
So it's a concept about mindset, and it's a concept about who's in control of us and how we feel. It used to be called attitude. Mindset used to be called attitude, but now it's mindset is the buzzword of the 21st century.
Yeah.
So when Tigger moves along, he bounces everywhere. He's got high energy. He even laughs in an upward tone. He goes, "Ugh!" So it's sort of like an up.
Yeah.
Eeyore is the opposite. He's the pendulum swing. So he has what they call an external locus of control, meaning he feels that the universe and everything in the external environment controls him. He speaks with a downward inflection to his voice. He always looks at the worst side of things and he catastrophizes over everything. So if in the Disney characterization, he says things like, "Oh dear, the sky is falling down. It's going to rain on me. I go forward, I go backward." That sort of thing. So you've got the polar opposite pendulum swing. So you've got Tigger on the one hand, who's upbeat and up, and you've got Eeyore, who's down.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, the locus of control is who you choose to give your thought processes and choices to in any moment. So I would like to think of myself as a Tigger. I'm energetic, happy for most of the time, but I have Eeyore tendencies.
Me too.
So I'm normally Tigger, and I actually have Tigger sitting always beside me.
Oh, bless.
So that I'm reminded of being upbeat if I'm faced with a challenge that I think, oh, okay. But during that time where I was in that terrible space, I was Eeyore. I was Eeyore 100%, and I couldn't get out of Eeyore. So what I do is, from that experience and in my work, combined with all of the things that I've learned over the years, I learned to become self-aware, not self-absorbed, self-aware, and thinking about what I've got going on in here. How am I feeling? I want to articulate how I'm feeling. Am I feeling happy, sad, powerless, angry, concerned, joyous, excited? Whatever the emotion is, I tap into it. I tap into thinking about it. What am I feeling right now? And so am I feeling like Tigger, or am I feeling like Eeyore? And if I'm feeling like Eeyore, what can I do to get back to Tigger?
Yeah, beautiful.
That's what I do, and that's what I'm talking about, this dwelling and retelling. When I'm in a dwelling and retelling space, I'm Eeyore. When I'm in a powerful, empowered, make choices, get in the driver's seat of my car, behind the steering wheel, I'm Tigger. So am I a taxi, Eeyore? Am I in the driver's seat? Tigger. So, and that's why I talk about those two characters in particular, because they're so easily accessible. Go and watch a Disney cartoon, and all of a sudden you'll see, oh my God, I'm like Tigger, or I'm like Eeyore, what can I do? So in my coaching, I talk about things like, well, if I'm Eeyore, what do I do to get out of Eeyore? And so it's actually easier than you think, because it's like, I'll just go outside into the air, into the sunshine. So like, none of what I talk about in my book or in anything else is cost anything. They're all free, and they're all accessible to us all the time.
That's such a, and let's talk about that further on. I just wanted to share, as you were talking and expressing Eeyore and Tigger, I was going back and I was revisualizing as an observer, sort of watching my own mannerisms through that period. And when you talked about Tigger, I sort of think of as Tigger as very much as that bouncy. And when you've got the bouncing your step, you have a more of a helicopter view, so you can see more. You're opportunistic. There's more to see. Whereas when you talked about Eeyore, I sort of, instead of being upbeat and upright, I felt like I was crawling along in the carpet with all of the dust and the dirt and carrying on. Because where Eeyore, it's just, I'm only focusing on the filth that's in the carpet filers, or all those sorts of things. So I found that a beautiful representation, that I could really look at myself and, going into that hunched shouldered and, in very inward, but also too with you, when you've talked about the resources in that time period. For me, I chose to hide inside and stay away from people. So I was very much inward, not self-aware where we're going outwards. So for me, I knew I could go outside and put my feet in the grass, but I chose not to, because I wanted to dwell where I was, which was, concentrating on the dirt and filth and the carpet. So I'd love to explore some of these easy to utilize and easy accessible options with people, so they can help themselves trigger and go, Eeyore, let's just go outside and play in Tigger. So tell us some Tigger opportunities.
So Tigger has a multitude of easy things that we can do. It might be turning on the radio, or it might be getting out your favorite CD or MP3 or whatever it is in these instances for these days, depending on your age bracket. You just put on your favorite song that's got a beat to it, and get up and dance. And so if you can't go outside, the weather's miserable, or whether whatever the circumstance is, you can actually alter your mood by running up and down a flight of stairs, walking around the block. If you've got staircase, even if you can't go outside, if it's snowing or if it's flooding or if it's whatever, then you're inside, turn on some music. You've got sing. So there's with the endorphins are very important for decision making. So when you're Eeyore, you're not building any, and you are shielding yourself from whatever else is going on. So you're crunched up. Your analogy about being crunched on the floor and crawling is exactly what Eeyore does in that space in your head, because you can't absorb anything, you can't let any light in, you can't, you want to be curled up in the dark. Now, I just want to talk just on that feeling at the moment, for just that immediate moment, because it's okay to be upset and feel victimized and feel upset by the situation, whatever that situation is. That's normal. What's not normal is to stay there.
Guilty and charged, because that was what I had done, and we've all done it. So it's a reminder to not do it for as long next time around, or something.
Exactly. So what I do to transit between Eeyore and Tigger is that I give myself a time frame, which is also part of the strategy. So let's just say I've had a situation where somebody was abusive in the street and cut me off, while I'm driving. Now, I have a choice not to react to road rage, although I'm sure we've all felt it at some stage, in our life, with the injustice of what's just happened, or something happens at work, or something happens in, a friend's really horrible to you for whatever reason. You can choose to dwell in that for a period of time, or you can choose to draw a line in the sand, feel the feelings for 24 hours, if it's a really serious situation, or 48 hours, and then draw a line in the sand and bounce over it.
Right. Beautiful.
Bounce, Tigger, bounce, not crawl over it, bounce over it, because you need to be able to let all your feelings out. write a list of all the pros and cons in the situation, or write a letter and then burn it, or, put a letter, go underwater and scream your lungs out, or in the shower and, or whatever it is that you do to release the pent-up emotion that is from the situation. Then you can, and if it's not that bad and you think, I just feel really down, I just feel really Eeyore today, then you can be Eeyore for the day. But tomorrow you have to be back to Tigger. So turn on some music, get some fresh air into your lungs, sing, even though you may not be a good singer. It doesn't matter. If it's just you at home, darlings, don't worry about who can hear you or not. Sing, because when you breathe in, and you breathe in, fill your lungs up, and then you exhale, or you're singing to your favorite song or rapping to your favorite artist, the endorphins that you do to breathe in and out creates all these beautiful, lovely little chemicals in your brain, and you start to feel better. Then you can go and do something else more energetic, or more go outside and walk around the block. And if you've got mobility issues, which I've had from time to time, do it in your lounge room. Open your window and stick your head out the door, or something like that. You don't have to, if it's pouring with rain.
Shake your hands and that sort of thing.
Yeah, touch your toes a couple of times if you can reach your toes, or start by reaching whatever you can reach, and then build up to touching your toes, or do a star jump. Or what it does, the blood, you need to get the blood flowing. When we're in a tortoise shell, like hiding, we don't have the blood circulating through our veins properly. So be active, walk up and down a stair, do a star jump. You've got to do something to get the blood flowing, because the nanosecond that you do, you'll start to feel better, and then you can look at things more objectively.
And I'm just going to jump in there, because when you were actually talking about the breath, I did take deeper breaths, because I was sitting here concentrating, and so I breathed shallower. And the minute I took those deeper breaths, I actually did have a burst of energy. So I wanted the audience, because they've probably done that along with us, they've breathed along with us. Did you actually notice it as much as I did? So, just that conscious breathing of just getting in a bit deeper into the lungs makes all the difference. And also, how many of us have got housework playlists? So nobody likes housework. I've got a housework playlist that snaps me in. So we know that music can help us. We know that we've got all these tools around us. It's about the choice to actually utilize them and get out of the turtle shell, which I loved for way too long. And some of us have done that. And there is ways in which you can become your own best problem solver. And it starts by starting with maybe a little bounce of Tigger just in your hands, and flopping your hands around, and then seeing where the rest of that movement might go, just to shift and move the energy.
Exactly. And, look, you need to do things without the fear of other people watching or judging you. So, and if there are other people in the house and you feel like you can't, shake your hands, or, without being judged or whatever, then do it while you use the bathroom. Go into the bathroom and shut the door for 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be a half an hour session, just a couple of seconds, really, 10, 20 seconds. So surely you can find some patch where you can go and jump in the bathroom, or something, so you don't feel like you're being judged by others who may not understand what you're doing.
And that's so true. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm so glad you actually mentioned that, because even though it's only me and my son at home, there was points. I've got this dance that I do that's 8 minutes, which starts with shaking your hands, and then you go, and that for me is, if I need to shift my energy, I look and feel like an absolute weirdo. I feel great afterwards. But when I very first started doing that, I said to Rory, if you hear some strange music coming out of my office or out of my room, just don't come in. Just don't come in. Just let me win. Because I didn't want to do it in front of him, because I knew I looked and it was out of character and weird for me. So I even had my own thing going on around judgment, and it's my son, and he's as easygoing and loves weird as much as I do, but I still had to do it in my own privacy so nobody could see me doing it.
Yes, and I think, if you're in a situation where part of the problem is within your own home and own household, and the draining energy is within, then you then potentially you would feel you're opening yourself up to judgment by that person that you are trying to emotionally combat, in terms of that. So it's about these nanoseconds of privacy and private time where you can be your total authentic self without the judgment, and you just need to find that opportunity. And it might be going to take the garbage bins out onto the driveway, or it might be going into the yard and weeding the garden for 5 minutes, or something where you have an opportunity to be yourself. And instead of just walking up and down the stairs, run up and down the stairs automatically, that you've got your endorphins flowing. And it's not then an opportunity for somebody then to take advantage of the difference that they see, or a different behavior that you're then showing, to combat and lift yourself up from wherever you are. You may not always have an opportunity, and I know a lot of people haven't throughout the last couple of years of having a lot of privacy. So, just that couple of things, and, running up and down a staircase to and from your house is really no unusual thing.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not an out of the ordinary experience for others to see. So therefore, you can do it in complete and utter privacy. So
yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Peter. And I just wanted to do it, as I can't believe how quickly we've gone through time. a bit of a recap. Peter just popped across the screen about how the difference of standing tall and walking forward can make in your own persona. Lifting your head and walking tall can instantly lift a mood. And you were talking about jotting elements down. I haven't got them in my hand. They're in the bedroom at the moment. I've got a peachy coloured journal, and then my red journal, and my peachy one on the front of it's called Rant Files. That's where all the crap goes when I need to load stuff, just get it out of my head, so I don't keep telling the story and keep saying I wish I'd said that, I should have told them that, blah blah blah. It gets all written in the Rant File, not to keep for prosperity. It's just out of head, out of mind. And then I've got the other one, which is more like the gratitude journal, or the wins for the day journal.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, thank you. And that another little tip that somebody shared with me is, when you're having a dark day, the shower is always a great place to move. And if you want to create a element of luxury and nurturing yourself when the water's going over your head, take a piece of chocolate into the shower and feel the essence of the chocolate, how it explodes in your mouth while the water's coming over it. And that's been a phenomenally shifting self-nurturing tool, as long as, again, you don't do it too often, all in moderation. But let's, as we sort of wind up today, I'll go back across to you and to talk about some of the other things that we've recapped. So we've talked about walking, running up and down the stairs, movement. I'll let you continue.
So one of the things that I find is nature is incredible. But you just have to look at a flower, or be out in a forest, or if you're in suburbia, like a lot of us are, there is nature outside too, just in the fresh air or the sunshine. One of the things that is so meaningful to me is being able to be in the sunshine. Yeah. So we're lucky in our environment because we have sunshine so much, but it's not about long periods in the sun. It's the vitamin D that comes from the sun. So you can go outside, and even if it's a cold day and if it happens to be sunny, just shutting your eyes and letting your face bask in the sun is an incredible mood lifter. Talking to a friend, picking up the phone and talking to someone, but not talking about the problem, talking about, other issues or other happy thoughts, reading an inspirational quote, going and doing something for others. If you are experiencing a lot of hardship yourself, going and doing something for another person alleviates a lot of your own issues and helps you put things into perspective. So perspective is an amazing word that I find is because when we're in Eeyore, we lose perspective. Our problems are overwhelming to us.
Yeah.
And that's it's not dulling down or making those problems insignificant, because they're not. But it's about putting them into perspective. So there was always a saying I remembered. I used to feel sorry when, I had no shoes until I saw someone with no feet. So it's not making your situation illegitimate or insignificant, but it's putting it in proportion to what it actually is. And when we're in it, we find our problems are overwhelming. So we need to do something to put them back into perspective and proportion.
Yeah.
So that's about what Tigger and Eeyore do in comparison. But, laugh. Find something to laugh at, or even giggle. If you can't manage a laugh, just manage a giggle. It makes a huge difference.
It certainly does. And for those that would like to get in contact with Annie, we've got a ticker going across the screen where Annie's providing some inspirational tips and quotes. And I'm just going to read it out. It is gettalk.at/ANNE. So I'm going to read that again for you. It is GETTALK.AT/ANNE. And how is the best way for people, or what is the best way for people to actually get in contact with you? And where are you most active on social media?
Well, I'm most active on social media on Facebook. You can just type in my name, Anne McDowell. I can't think of the hashtag off the top of my head, but the other place is that I have a website address, which is www.amc.id.au. And you can then contact me there and get in touch with me. But Facebook is probably where I'm at. I'm also on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, wherever I'm there. And you'll see my profile, same profile image that you had before. So you'll be able to see me and go, oh, yeah, that's her.
Yeah, beautiful. And for those that want to find out a little bit more too, don't forget Anne's book, Creating Eternal Optimism, Redesigning Your Thinking and Transforming Your Life, because that has 101 different tools, tips and strategies. Is that right? Do I have that number right? So that's a great opportunity for you to experience and have some of those tools for yourself if you want to start your own self-reflecting and start tiggerizing yourself.
Lovely.
Thank you so much for sharing and telling so many fabulous stories for us, and really using the Eeyore and Tigger analogy, because I can really relate to both of those. As we all can.
It's been my absolute pleasure, and it's such a joy to be able to talk to you today, Sally. Thank you so much. It's been a fun time, so thank you.
You're very, very welcome. And what we'll do now very, very quickly is just nip to a quick commercial break, and then we'll wrap the show up for the day, and we'll see you very soon.
Are you a speaker, coach, or consultant wanting to increase your reach and impact? Need to save time and leverage your resources? Content repurposing is the fastest way to increase your visibility, credibility, and profitability online and reach your audience with ease. You already sit on a mountain of gold that is highly valuable to your audience. It's in your books, training manuals, articles, and presentations. We regularly turn clients' books into 12 to 24 months worth of content. Let us turn your existing content into visually stunning, bite-sized content tiles. Content repurposing is the easiest way to turn your past into profits. Turn your existing content into bite-sized glitter that you can sprinkle everywhere with ease to attract your ideal audience. Let us amplify your voice, your message, and your impact. Find out more at sallyacurtis.biz.
Thank you once again. So next week's show is going to be a little bit different as well. I've got Linda coming on to share with you. She's also a marketing strategist similar to myself, but she's a specialist on Pinterest. Now, here in Australia, we don't use Pinterest in a great way, and we don't use it as much as they do in the US. But Pinterest is a phenomenal tool for SEO and redirecting people to your website, etc. So it's a great lead generation tool when done correctly. And I'm currently not using it correctly, so that's why I've got Linda coming on to share with us some tips. So she's going to be sharing how to use Pinterest correctly, and it's perfect for coaches, consultants, and service-based business because it is actually an SEO driving tool. So that's next week's show. And again, thank you so very, very much, Anne, for joining us and sharing so much with us. I'm sure the audience have got some great tips to move them forward. So thank you once again.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise, thank you very much, everyone, and we will look forward to seeing you next week on another on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Till then, have a great time. Take care.
That's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and I trust that you got some inspirational tips to move you forward. You can find this episode along with many more on your favorite streaming platform such as iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for more Success Secrets Exposed with Sally A. Curtis.